Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our Discover What's Possible Bank Reconciliation webinar here for CDM Plus. A little bit after 2, we got a couple people still coming in, but we will go ahead and get started. My name is Alex Clay. I'm the CEO here at Surian Systems. We make CDM Plus. Joining me today and our presenter will be Sherry Snedden, who is our Technical Support Manager. We've got several other folks with us in the webinar to assist and answer questions. See the names there, Julianne, Jennifer, Chris, Eli. When it's time for questions at the end of the webinar, we'll do our best to get you a great answer and then move on to the next person until we have no more questions. Because we're going to be looking at some accounting information today, if you have specific questions about maybe you're using CDM Plus for bank reconciliations and you're trying to troubleshoot something, our support team is here to help with that. Sherry will show you how to get a ticket over so we can get you some assistance and help take care of you one-on-one there. So this is the first of a series of webinars that we are bringing out here in 2024, and we're calling this Discover What's Possible. One of the common pieces of feedback that we hear is, CDM Plus is a vast program. There's a lot you can do with it, and I just don't feel like we're taking advantage of everything that the program has to offer. So we wanted to put together a series of webinars once a month to sort of look at some of the more useful areas or areas that maybe are not as used as often, but could be, and just highlight kind of how CDM Plus works, what it can do. And from there, we invite you to come and get some training, work with our support team, dig into it, but we're really here to just kind of show you what CDM Plus can do for you. So today we're looking at the bank reconciliation, and this is a part of the CDM Plus accounting program. So CDM Plus accounting is fund accounting. It's not business accounting. There's not going to necessarily be a revenue or profit or loss or anything. Instead, we're going to have designated funds that track the monies that are coming in for your organization, for your mission. CDM Plus fund accounting was purposely built for a church and has grown to serve everything from regional judicatory levels, nonprofits, cause-based organizations, and everything in between. So with your organization, one of the key things that you want to make sure you're doing is taking care of the funds, the monies that are being given to support your mission, and reconciling what your records say against what the bank says is a just core discipline to make sure that you have integrity and accuracy of your record keeping and making sure you're paying good stewardship to that support. And in CDM Plus, we have a great tool for this. For doing the bank reconciliation. And that's what we're going to show you today, how this works in the program. Now, looking at sort of the folks that have come into the webinar, a lot of folks have our accounting program, but some of you don't, and that's okay. We're really here just to kind of discover what's new. If you're not sure if you have accounting, you can go into CDM Plus and sort of go to the About window and look at serialization. You can also just reach out to our sales team and say, hey, I'm not sure if I have the accounting. Is this something that I could try or not? Maybe you have it and you're not using the bank reconciliation, and we can show you how easy that is today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Sherry, and she's going to walk us through how bank reconciliations work. Sherry is awesome. I'm really, really happy to have her on our team. So Sherry, you should be good to go whenever you're ready.
All right. My name is Sherry, as Alex said, and I'm the support manager. I've been using CDM for over 5 years. The program has so many wonderful features, and it's hard for me to pick a favorite, but I actually think that my favorite would be the bank rec. I'm an accountant, so I have an accounting background for many, many years, more than I care to admit. And I've used many different programs to do bank reconciliations, and this is by far the easiest, not only in time, but just in the way to do it, the features. They just make sense. So we're going to go to CDM. We're going to go to Program, Ledger, and Bank Reconciliation. And that will bring up our bank reconciliation. So we'll talk about this window. If you've used CDM's bank rec, this will be very familiar to you. Now, But if you haven't, we'll talk about it just briefly. So across the top, you'll see that there are a few sections. We'll start with the asset section. And that asset is just all your asset accounts, any account that could need a reconciliation, right? Now, not every account, every asset account will you need to reconcile. But if you do, this is it, you'll see it here. In the midsection here under bank rec, this will be all of your previous bank reconciliations. And then on the right, you'll see a summary. And this is what's going to continually change as we do our bank rec. You'll see current balance and you'll see statement balance. And then you'll see all of those numbers begin to change. Your current balance is just that, right? And it's whatever it is today, whatever your current balance is. And then your statement balance will be the statement balance. And then you'll see your uncleared deposits, uncleared checks. And then the yellow is where we eventually, when you're doing your bank rec, now we're not going to get there today because the purpose of this is just as a demo. But the goal of when you're doing a bank rec for real is you want zero in that yellow space, right? Because we want to get to zero and that'll give us a good reconciliation. So the first thing that you would do when you come in to your bank rec is you want to set up your bank statement. So we're going to say add here. You see the hyperlink here in the midsection. You would click on add. This drop down lists the assets that are in that first window that we talked about. So if you were going to do your savings account or your checking, whatever the case may be, you would just click on that. You can choose the asset. Then you're going to have your start date, and that will be determined based on your last month's reconciliation. You'll put your end date as it appears on your bank statement, and then you'll put in the amount. And we're just going to put in 10,000 here just for the sake of our demo. And then what's going to happen is it's going to save, and you'll see that now at the top, November 1 to November 30. Now we're going to move over to the left side in our gray side panel under the section at the top called Show. So just a couple features at the top. Hide header means just that, right? We're just going to click that. And when we click it, it hides that top section, gives us a little more real estate that we can work with. We see a few more entries before we have to scroll. The option that says standard sort, do you see how if you look at my window of uncleared items, which is right here at the left where my mouse is, you'll see they're kind of credits and debits. They're just kind of all random throughout. Well, if you click on standard sort, what it does is it moves everything to a more familiar way that in most cases will match along with your bank statement, right? You'll see your deposits, and then you'll see all of your withdrawals. You can change that at any point by clicking on these header rows. So if you wanted to say, oh, well, I'm looking for a certain amount, I have a lot of transactions, so you can just click on debit, and what it'll do, and click it one more time, and it'll just bring all of that to the top in order. So if you were looking for a specific amount. So if you said, okay, I found what I needed, but now I want to go back to the normal sort, then just click on sort option again. And now you're back to the standard sort. The show voided and show future is just that, right? We all have voided checks throughout the month that we have to do. If it says show voided, then that means they're hidden. So you won't see them. So if you're looking to clear a voided check, you want to click show voided. And then you see the ones with asterisks. Those means that we've voided them. And you do want to clear those together, right? You should be able to clear a debit and a credit for the same amount, which would net to zero. Because when we void a check, we want to do that with an offsetting entry. So therefore you have a debit and a credit. So that's important. You wouldn't want to just clear one side of the entry, because if you do that, it's going to cause you to get out of balance. Same thing with future. If you click on show future, it'll show everything. It'll show everything that you have in your system. If you hide that, then it limits what you see. It won't show anything past the date of the ending statement. All right. So that kind of sets us up. So now you've got your bank statement in hand, and now you're okay, I'm ready to start clearing your transactions. So you can clear them a few different ways. Actually, you can clear them by simply, let's say that this 682347, we see that on our bank statement. So we can just simply double click it and it moves it over to clear. If you see now, it's on the right hand side, and our numbers changed at the top right where we're out of our difference. All right. You could also, let's say we also see the $1,610. You can left click it and just drag it over and just drop it. That'll also do the same thing. But let's say that you've got your bank statement in hand and you say, okay, I see 632, 500, 5,000, all of these in order, all the way down. 450, 100, 150. I see all of those. You can left click on the first one, shift, left click on the bottom one, and then just drag that whole batch over at one time. Boom, right? So you don't have to click, 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 click. So it's super easy. Now, the thing about that is, you want to make sure they're on your bank statement before you pull them over in batches like that. But if you can bring them over in chunks, that definitely will save you some keystrokes. So now let's say that you are doing your bank rec, you've got your bank statement, and you say, oh goodness, I forgot that I paid my power bill by an auto withdrawal. And I didn't record it. So now I need to record that, right? So another great feature about CDM's bank rec is we can record that on the fly without leaving this window. So over on the left, under the add section in the gray side panel, is we're going to click entry. Now, do you see how it's asking me if we want to save? This is a great feature. It's always going to ask you if you want to save, if you've made any changes, so that you don't accidentally leave it and lose your changes. So we're going to say, yes, we want to save. And then it's going to do its thing and save all of the things we've just done. And now we have a ledger entry. So let's say that we're going to do a ledger entry, and we'll just pick an expense here, which it really doesn't matter. And we're going to say $100. Wouldn't we all like to have a $100 power bill? So, all right. And then we're just going to record that just like we would if we were doing our entry just over in ledger. All right. So we're going to just click on save now, because now, of course, if you were doing that for real, you would put a description, right? Of course. All right. Now, the one thing that it does is when you do that, the system says, now, wait, if you're doing these on the fly, then obviously you've seen this on your bank statement. So we're going to go ahead and take it one step further, and we're going to clear that for you. So as you can see over here on the right, you can see that $100 that I just keyed in. So it automatically clears them for you. So what you wouldn't want to do is say, well, hey, while I'm in here, I'm just going to go ahead and do another entry. I needed to do these 4 or 5, because it's going to clear them all for you. So just keep that in mind. Same thing is true if you had a deposit. You can also key those on the fly. A check, if somebody wrote a manual check and maybe they forgot to give it to you, and now you've had to search that down. I know that never happens to any of us, but you've had to find that, and now you know that there was a manual check written, and so you have to key that in. All right, same thing. All of that works perfectly. So So now let's say that you've got all of your, we're going to go through, I'm just going to clear a few more things just for the sake of, just because I want to have a couple of things. And you can see I'm just double clicking a few items, and it's that easy. If so, and I can give you a real world experience. I do the books for a local church in our area, and I do their bank rec. When I do the bank rec, 15 minutes tops, and I love it. It's amazing. So okay, so let's say that now we've cleared everything, checks and deposits, and now we've got we had a $5 bank charge. So over here in the center, you can see on this side, you see we have 3 sections: bank charges and interest, along with current activity. So we're going to choose bank charges. At the bottom left, you'll see add. And then here, we can put in whatever account we want by clicking this icon right here, this little, just like everywhere else in CDM. So we're going to go ahead and just pick something. But if you want to, if you have a bank charge account, you can set it up to do a default. We can certainly do that. And then every time you add, it'll already have that bank account number in there. Just one more step, it's saving you. So here, let's say it's bank fees and it's $25. All right. So now that's our fees. So if we come over, now you see we've got our $25. Well, let's just pretend we got some interest. So same thing, same deal works. It works exactly the same. You can click here. We can just pick an income account, and let's say we got $2. Okay. And then we can go back to activity. And now you see we've got our bank charges, and we have our interest, and we have our activity. Okay. Now we're gonna pretend like we're at 0. Well, actually, you know what? Let's pretend we're not at 0, which clearly we're not. But let's say now you've got a problem and you're trying to say, how do I fix this? I don't even know where to begin. Do I do the whole thing over? Well, we don't want you to have to do the whole thing over if you have a little bit of a sticky bank rec. So what you would do there's 3 very key numbers that we look at. The first number is up here. When we created our bank reconciliation, we said we had it was $10,000 was our ending bank balance, right? On the summary. Well, first of all, let's make sure we keyed that in right. Let's make sure that we didn't typo that or pick up the wrong number. So we want to confirm that number. The second number is at the bottom here on the right. You see the debit column. It says 15,717.47, and our credit column is 5,125. That's the other 2 numbers. So you want to look at your balance and your debit and credit amounts that you've cleared. Those should match what's on your bank statement. That's how, if those match, you're going to be at 0. But if they don't match, and taking into account anything that you've keyed here, of course, okay? So if you go here and they haven't, and they don't match, then oh, my credits match, but my debit doesn't. So now I know that I just need to look at deposits. That's where my problem is. So it kind of narrows down the area that you need to research, because you've confirmed the different numbers. So that, I find that to be really helpful. It's very helpful when working with customers, helping them narrow that down. And then they're able to say, okay, well, now let's focus just on deposits, or let's focus just on our checks. And we can find it a lot faster when we have a little sticky bank rec. So, okay, I want to show you one other thing before we move on. Do you see on the right, you have your reference numbers on both sections, on the uncleared section and the cleared items. You see your reference number. So You can, of course, take that reference number and key it into your ledger like we would if we were looking things up. But you can also, if you say, what is that $22? I don't remember that. I don't know why that's still there. If you just click on that over on the left, you see at the bottom under go, this is our jump button. We now have a jump that'll take us to the ledger entry. So if we click on that, remember, it's going to ask us if we want to save our changes. We're going to say yes. And then what it's going to do is it's going to take us to that ledger, and it'll allow us to say, oh, okay, now I remember what that is. And so then we'll see this entry. Where that's going to come in handy for you is when you are doing a bank rec. And do you know when we have those checks or deposits that are older and we're like, why are those hanging around? Well, that helps us go look at those right from within the bank rec so that we know exactly what we're doing, right? Now, I want to show you something just because I'm going to hide our bank rec just because I want to show you this little tip. Now, some of you may know this, so I may be preaching to the choir, but I want to show you a tip that I think is great. I don't know if you guys work like I do, but when I work, I have a lot of windows open, more than I probably should because I'm working on a lot of things at one time. But if I say, oh, I need to go back over to my bank rec, so most of us probably go back up to program, go down to ledger, and we go back to the beginning. If you just click on window at the top, you see this section right here below this little very thin line. These are all the windows that you have open. So you could have 8, 10, 12 windows open and just move back and forth very seamlessly to those windows. So if I click on bank rec, now it's going to bring me right back to that window. If I wanted to go back, I just click it and it goes back super quick. So you'll find if you're like me and you have a lot of windows open, that'll be a good tip. I know that's not really bank rec, but I always like to share that when I can. Okay, so moving on. So we've got our 3 key numbers. We've talked about being able to research, looking at the ledger entry. Now I want to talk about this section here where under the do, right? So this do section, there's a couple things that are important to know here. The first one we're going to talk about is file. So if you get to 0, this yellow, where the yellow highlight is that you're in 0, you want to file your bank rec. You don't want to file if you're not at 0. You really want to be 0. But if you're at 0, you click on file. Let me tell you what that's doing. File takes a snapshot of what your window looks like, just like this, right? Because remember, it's using current balance. So if I don't file it and freeze it in time, what happens is if I come back here next week and I look at November's bank rec, all these numbers have changed because now I have a new current balance. My uncleared and cleared items will my uncleared deposits and checks will have changed because I now have written checks, I have taken in deposits, and so that will change. So the way to keep your snapshot so that it's really truly is what did it look like when I did my bank rec is to click here and it'll say, of course, for me, it's telling me, hey, hold up, you're not in balance. Are you sure you want to continue? We're not going to continue. We're just going to say no. But yours would come up and ask you if you wanted to file it just for confirmation, and you would say yes. When you file it, you will know it's filed because on the left-hand side, and actually, you know what? We'll go ahead and do it, even though we're out of balance. So it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to file this reconciliation? We're going to say yes. What it's going to do is it's going to, again, freeze it. And you'll see on the left, but right beside of the N in November, I hope you can see that, there's an asterisk. and that tells you it's filed. Now, what happens is you can't move anything. Like I can double click all day and nothing's going to change. I can't unclear it or I can't clear anything. If you find that at a later time that it's necessary to unfile it because you've got to make a change or an adjustment and you need to unclear something so you can work with it, you will have to unfile it. And then, of course, when you unfile it, you do lose that snapshot. But if you don't, if you're golden and you don't have to make any changes, then your snapshot stays intact, no problem. Okay. The next thing I want to tell you about is import. We do have a feature where you can import a report from your bank if your bank offers that the format that's needed. Now, if you would like to investigate that, we're going to encourage you to actually create a support ticket, and I'll show you how to do that before I end my section. I'll show you how to do that from within CDM. We have a lot of ways to do it, but I'll show you from within CDM, and we'll help you. One of our support techs will actually help you with that first import so that you'll see if it works for you. And then of course, this option, which is your print option, that's going to be your report. And if you click on standard search, you'll see that this is taking you to the bank reconciliation reports, and you can create a printer report on any one that you have already done, right? Well, this was our bank rec that we just did. So we're going to just go ahead and pop that to the screen, and then you get your report, and it'll show the items that we cleared. Then it shows you all the items that remain uncleared, because of course this is all test data and it's a lot of it's older dates. And then when you come on down here, then you'll get your summary. It'll show you current balance, and basically it's showing you what we saw on the top right of the screen. And if you have filed and you're at 0, then you won't see this big number, 15,000, you'll see 0. And you can go back and do this report at any time. You don't even have to be in bank rec. You actually can even do this from, if you go to reports and then you go to ledger, bank reconciliation, and it'll take you to the same place. All right. And then you'll be able to do the reports just as we discussed. Okay. Now, this was very much a demo, right? But I will tell you guys, this is pretty much our bank rec. I mean, it really is that easy. So, if you are using it, I hope you share my love for it. And if you're not, why not? Because it really, truly is great. If you have issues where you're out of balance or something that works like that, being able to find it is so much easier than any other program that I've ever worked in. I love it. I don't know if you can tell, but I do. I love it so much. Well, if you have an issue, let's say that you haven't used the bank rec before and you'd like to start, and you're like, I just don't even know where to begin because we've never used it. That's okay. No judgment. That's totally fine. Just reach out to support and we'll help you get that first one done, because you will have to do a little bit more to get that first one done, to get everything balanced up to date. So, but reach out to support, and I'll show you how to do that so right here within CDM, if you go up to help, email text support right there. If you click on that option, it'll take you to your mail, and it'll create an email made out to us. You'll type in your question, the specifics of what you need, send, and that will create a support ticket, and a tech will respond back to you. It's that easy. And that's from anywhere in the program. You can email support. The more details you can give us on that, that's even better, because when we call you back, we're a little more prepared. So that's great too. And I think, let me make sure I've covered all of the things that would be important for us at this point. Let me just, one more thing I want to reiterate about the show your voided checks, right? I recommend that each month when you do your bank rec, that you go to show your voided, take a look, say, okay, let me void out the ones that I've created this month. Don't let them stack up. So that way it puts those voided transactions as cleared in the bank rec where they happened. Now, and that's just for timing purposes. If you have to go look at it, it puts it in the right time period. I always like to wait until I'm at 0 before I clear any of my voided checks, because it's super easy to make sure that I'm clearing the correct entries, debit and credit, because every 2, I should be back to 0. Debit, credit, 0, debit, credit, 0. So for me, it works so much better. I don't have to keep up with what number was up there to see if I've cleared the right entry. So I always like to do that at 0. I think that's it. I believe I've covered everything. If you have any questions, any specific questions about your database, about your data, about any issues that you have, please reach out to support regarding that. We want to make sure that we protect your privacy as it relates to your data. But I think they'll open it up for questions now, and I'll turn it back over to you, Chris.
Yolanda, you have a question?
Yes. I wanted to know, and this might end up being specific, but how do you get rid of old items that show up in your reconciliation report from prior years?
Do you mean that, like, if they're uncleared items?
Yes, it says uncleared item. But then when I go back to the reconciliation, I don't see it on the reconciliation.
Are they in your reconciliation window under uncleared?
No.
Okay.
Not when I go back to that I go back to that year's reconciliation. I don't see them in the uncleared section.
Now, make sure that you've checked the show voided and show future. Make sure you've selected those buttons.
Okay.
It should be there, but if it's not, then that's definitely a support question, so we can take a look at that with you. But if you have uncleared items that are in that window that, like you said, are from years past, that people just didn't cash their checks, or you have deposits there, in that case, you would want to research those items to determine, like a deposit, did we make a double entry, which happens, in which case you would need to void out that entry. If it's a check, if it's longer than a certain amount of time, then they can't cash the check even if they wanted to. So you would have to void out that check while then determining how you want to handle it with the recipient.
Okay. So you're saying, though, if it's showing up on the reconciliation report, then it should be on the uncleared section of the reconciliation.
If it's showing as uncleared on your reconciliation report, then you should see it as an uncleared item on your bank reconciliation window, unless, and again, depending on when you did your report, unless somehow it has been cleared since that report. So I would recommend that you reach out to support and let us take a look at that specifically to see what's going on there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sherry, is voiding a check something that you could show? We have a question in the chat about it.
Yeah, let me share my screen again. All right, so let's say that I went to this and I have determined that this is a check that we don't need, right? That it hasn't been cashed, it's several years ago. So if I go to ledger entry over here on the left, it's going to pull that, and you can see I now have 4935. Over here on the left, now this is a ledger entry. Checks work the same, right? When you go into a check, you're going to see on the left, you see here we have a void option. If I click on void, it's going to come up and say, would you like to zero out this line or create an offsetting entry? We do recommend, now you can do either, but we do recommend to create an offsetting entry. That just gives you the debit and credit side of that entry. So it nets to 0, but you see the activity that happened. Then you just create the offsetting entry. you can see over here on the right, it's saying this entry voids reference number 355, and it tells when it was voided. And then you would just save that in. That's a voided ledger entry. And it works similarly the same if we were to do based on the check. If you went into, so again, if we went to a check number, maybe we don't have it. Oh, here we go. So if we say, we go down to a check, we say ledger entry. Well, it's still going to take us to the ledger entry, but you'll see that you can see you're voiding the same, that it works the same. This one is check number 1081. And this is your ledger entry. So we would have to void it from, oh, this was a payroll. So you can't void payroll checks like that. So you have to void payroll checks in the payroll window, but it works the same. You would see voided. Does that help?
Thank you for that. I guess an attached follow-up. It said, what if you have to create an offset entry that was voided without one?
If you voided with a 0 and zeroed it out, that's okay. It's not a problem. What you'll see with a 0, by making it 0, is your entry just has zeros. You'll still see it. You'll still see the entry. You just see $0. So that is certainly okay. It's not a problem.
Joe had one other follow-up. It said, what if there was an invoice associated with a voided check?
The invoice will not be there any longer. So if you, let's say you wrote the check wrong and you had to void that check and you say, oh, I need to now go pay the invoice for the right, you'd have to put in your invoice again.
I think that might be about it, Sherry.
Okay. Well, hopefully that meant that we answered all your questions during the webinar, but please remember that if you have any specific questions, just create that ticket and we'll reach out to you.
And thank you all very much for coming today.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Hope you all have a great day.